Hi. So today's video is about something that I often get asked about because it's such a nuance, it's such a fine thing between the voice of intuition and the voice of fear. And I thought, particularly at a time like this, when there's a heightened feeling of, bad news coming at us, and statistics and numbers, and the facts are very good to know, but sometimes it's a lot of facts that are going in the direction. Even though they're improving, they're still quite heavy. It's still quite a heavy dose. So I felt the timing for this video was correct because when I started my journey, I left the world of finance and I slowly sort of pieced it together. So I was following the curiosity to find, the next thing that I was curious about. I went back to university, I did a master's degree and in culture, education, and human development. And from there, I kind of like pieced it together. I worked with the little kids for a while, I did this and that. But I was following for me, intuition, I was defining intuition as the energy, the curiosity, and I was following that step by step. It wasn't so conscious, but I had started to understand the value of our intuition and following that which appeals to us. Now, what intuition comes with is it comes with a tag that says you're going to have to be quite courageous. So the voice of intuition is a voice of appeal, but it asks you to it asks a lot of you. It's uncomfortable. It can be quite uncomfortable, and it really can strip you of a lot of your fears and a lot of the ego stuff, because it's about being so true to yourself that you're following the steps and taking on what that requires. And so I love it because the word courage comes from the French word cœur, which means heart. And so for me, intuition comes with that prerequisite that you're going to, by following your heart, by following the energy, by following what you're naturally drawn to, the pulls that Rumi talks about, that by following those, you're actually on the path, the journey of the heart, which is the journey that requires your courage and requires a lot of you. It asks a lot. But intuition is driven by appeal. So even though it's asking a lot, there's something about it that's appealing and it feels like the natural next step. There's definitely that feeling to it where you're moving forward. So it's you at the deepest level of you rising to meet those challenges and what's being asked of you to move your journey forward. So that's how intuition works. The voice of fear has a very different energy to it. So I remember reading books like Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And so for a while, I kind of explored that angle of things, the things that scared me. Maybe that was just a push for me to go on the other side because, I would come across a lot of quotes and stuff circulating saying everything you want is on the other side of fear. So fear is different because fear kind of closes you up rather than opens you up energetically. And how fear works is, so the way I explain fear is that fear is a proceed with caution. It's not a freeze and don't do it, but it's a proceed with caution. So there's the ego part of you that's protecting you, that's looking after you, and hence you feeling some sort of fear. So there's something to it. The proceed with caution is necessary and I think a requirement, because sometimes when I've sort of pushed and said no, I've got to get past that fear, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like how intuition feels. And so note how you're feeling with the fear, and don't assume it's a sort of close that door. No, because think of Mark Twain and what he said, and he said courage is the mastery of fear, not the absence of it. And so it's a mastery of fear. So we have to master fear because fear is there for a reason. But fear is not necessarily saying don't go there. It's just saying study it a bit, you know. So those two voices are very interesting because intuition requires courage, requires us to rise, requires us to move ourselves forward, but it excites us, and we know it's that combination of excitement, and there is that place which feels uncomfortable because courage is uncomfortable. Fear has another energy, which is basically proceed with caution. That's really what I'm going to keep sort of reiterating. So note those two, because the other day I was on LinkedIn and I saw an image that came up from an article in the Wall Street Journal with this man who looked really quite disturbed. I mean, he looked, he had his hand on his head and he looked quite heavy. And his thoughts, and the thing said, if it scares you, it's the right thing. And it really made me think about that. When I was in the markets, I was a contrarian, and a lot of times I would look at opportunities that people were not looking at because I could see the value of that at that point. But when it's the sort of do it anyway, but be scared and do it, that's not an intuitive energy. That's not an intuitive hit, because intuition whispers, and intuition keeps on whispering, but intuition comes with that appeal that I mentioned. So definitely feel the fear and do it, but make sure that the energy that's driving you forward is not that of, I'm going to sort of bump into the wall because I'm fearless, but rather because you're being pulled to go in that direction. And that pull, because intuition, sometimes the ideas are so out of the blue, they're not necessarily like linear or organized. They really can be from here, there, and anywhere. And that's why a lot of super successful people always trace it back to, I had a gut instinct, I had an intuition, I had a feeling, I had a hunch, I had, there's so many different terms for that. But I think of intuition as intuition. It's our inner intuition that's guiding us in the direction that is our soul's journey, and that requires us to rise and requires the best of us. And in that process, because achieving goals is really about the journey of who you become, because you don't want to reach those goals and be out of action, be like sometimes when you see people reach their goals and then they're in rehab, or they're in as a result of that, or their health has been hit, or that's not the point. The journey of becoming the greatest you is the journey of a lifetime. So intuition is a big part of it, because intuition is what it's the inner guidance that's coming at you when you go deep and connect to you. And there is the most efficient way to get really connected to your intuition and to those intuitive ideas is to savor the silence. And what a great moment now to just savor some of that silence that you get on your walk, or on your moment, your peaceful moments. Basically, those moments are where intuition is blossoming. So along with the season, your intuitive ideas are really available, and this is such a good time to tap into that, and to use that time to develop practices that allow you to go into the silence and to go inwards, and to connect with that energy. They're really guided steps, and as far as I'm concerned, they're the most powerful steps, because they're coming from the inside of you, from your intuition. So on this lovely note, I wish you a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.